Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to a special episode of Monorail Memoirs, where we have a Run Disney conversation with Dr. Ali Marty PT. She's quite famous within the Run Disney community, especially helping those runners who are a little bit more concerned about the balloon ladies than they are about smashing course records. Before we get into that, though, every episode we start the same way. Lauren, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
We need to stop ignoring our guests in the first 30 seconds of episodes, though. I've noticed this, and we need to find a new way to do it. But before we get into Dr. Ali's origin story, as we all know, I have got the weekly Would You Rather question. So, Ali, you can start with this one. Would you rather ride Primeval Whirl one last time? We all know that Dino Land USA is gone. So, would you rather ride Primeval Whirl one last time or Stitch's Great Escape?
So I'll do the Primeval. I actually have never done it.
Oh, well, to be honest, so Primeval Whirl and the entire Dino Land USA, in my view, was a misstep from Disney, because it was a series of carnival rides that they threw some non-exciting IP on. And I remember Primeval Whirl, I used to call the rib breaker, because when you would go on the side, you really did feel like you were breaking your ribs. But Lauren, what's your preference?
Absolutely, 100% agree with you. Primeval Whirl.
Well, that's because Stitch's Great Escape was a disaster.
Terrible.
It's a disaster. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about Run Disney. So, Dr. Ali is a PT who specializes in Run Disney content, and we'll leave all the links down to her material in the description below. But Ali, tell us, how did you get started then with Run Disney?
Yeah, so it's a little delayed. It's a little interesting. So I was never a runner. I will start off by saying that. I played other sports, but running was always like my sports punishment. So I never really got into that. I got into it when I was in college and grad school doing physical therapy school. And I had to memorize all of these muscles, ligaments, joints, actions. What do the muscles do? What nerves go to them? So on and so forth. So much stuff. And I also gained some freshman weight.
Happens.
Right? Like
Happens.
We all do. It's why it's the freshman 15, right? And so I actually wanted to just combine those two things of losing a little bit of weight and studying. So I used to make flashcards, go on the treadmill, and I had a stack of need to know and already know flashcards. And I had to go through the whole pile so that they were all in the already know pile. And I stayed on the treadmill the entire time I did it. Now, granted, like the stack wasn't massive. It would take me probably like an hour. I would walk, I would run, I would do whatever it took to get it done. But there was my 60 minutes of cardio for the day, a couple of days a week. So got started running that way, went through PT school, graduated, the whole kit and caboodle. My now husband, then boyfriend, was like, okay, well, we both like running. He also did triathlon. So he's like, let's just train for a half marathon together. And so I was like, okay. So I did my first half marathon in 2013. I did 2 that year. And then the following year, my sister did Disneyland Avengers Run Disney race. And now that I've said that out loud, maybe she had started it earlier than that. I'm not sure that was her first one.
Okay.
But that year, 2014, was my first introduction to Run Disney exists.
Okay.
I didn't do a race until virtual races during COVID times.
No.
Oh.
So it took me like 6, 7, maybe even 8 years. I think probably 7 years, because it was like 2021 time frame.
Yeah. That's a long time. I just assumed you'd been in it longer. I mean,
no.
If anything, that makes the growth of your profile more impressive because it's been in a shorter time frame.
Thank you. I have been running, and my sister was like, "Oh, well, why don't you come visit me?" And at the time, or come watch me do these. At the time, I worked in physical therapy clinics, and we get like 5 PTO days a year, and you get scrutinized if you take those days. What did you do? could you actually have worked that day? So it was like a big mess.
Mm.
And then in 2018, I finally went off on my own, did my own PT business that has morphed into running.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister used to text me, call me, email me, I don't know, like telepathically send me a message like my meniscus hurts, my Achilles hurts, gotta do the dopey race, I'm doing a 2-course challenge. What do? I need to keep training. And it got me in this world of, okay, running injuries, what can help people with running injuries? And all of the information that was out there were for like these elite athletes, Olympians, people who are running like 2-hour, 50-minute marathons or faster.
Yeah.
And my sister was in the crowd of like 7 to 8 hour marathons. And she was like, so I just don't know if this stuff is pertinent to me.
That is fair. That is fair. And I think actually you touched on something really interesting there, which is if we focus on injuries for a second, what do you think is sort of the biggest factor for people as they come into the Run Disney community and possibly never been runners before, and they sign up for, well, I signed up straight for dopey, which wasn't the smartest idea, but sign up for anything. What do you think people get wrong about the injury question?
Like what?
Okay, let
sure
me rephrase.
I know what you
let
mean.
me rephrase then. What do you think there's a difference between normal training discomfort and injury? How do people who are new to it understand where this line is?
Yes. So when in doubt, like go ahead and take a hot second, take a little break. I think one of the biggest things is new runners actually overdo the rest and think that every minor ache and pain is oh my God, this is the end of the world. I can't do it anymore. I think they go to too far of an extreme. But then there's the other extreme of people who have been running for years and they're like, oh, I just like chopped off my leg. I can keep going like mid-race, right? Like,
yep.
Obviously that's exaggeration, but there's, this wide gap here. And so I found that newer runners, every little ounce of discomfort or ache, they're like, oh my God, I have to stop. And I take it more of as an approach of pain means not this, not right now. So what needs to change is, did I step off the curb wrong? And now like I twisted my ankle, I twisted my knee. Like that's a legitimate injury. But if your knee is like kind of stiff and achy in the middle of an 8-mile run, is it just because your knee stays in roughly like a 20-degree bend when you're running and it wants to go through the full 140 for a quick minute? Like, do we just need to stop and like bend the knee a little bit? So it's not this, not right now. It could just be, let's take a second to stretch. Let's take a second to, it could be so much as like, if you're wearing leggings, is the legging like seam of it digging into a bruise or the end of your IT band?
Yeah, that's really
right?
good point, actually. Yeah.
Because the nerves down there are so superficial, and then it like gives you this pain that wraps around the knee. It's like, oh, I just needed to change my leggings.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because when I first heard about Run Disney, I was in, this was back in 24, I think, which is not long ago. I was in Walt Disney World and they just finished the Disney Marathon. And there were some people who were in the queue ahead of me for Frozen, of all rides. And they were wearing all the medals and everything. And I was sat there going, that seems interesting. And it was only in talking to them, because I had the impression, incorrectly, that you had to be able to do something like a 3 or 3.5 hour marathon. And that's when I was like, when they said, no, all you have to do is maintain the 16-minute per mile pace, which for those viewing outside of North America and the UK, that's 9 minutes and 56 kilometers. That's the conversion for those who do it in kilometers. Lauren, you work in K, don't you?
No, I work in miles.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm a strange horse in my run group because they all do it in K. And I'm like, oh, I've done 3. And they're like, we've done 5K. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I can't work in kilometers. But suffice to say that I was so surprised to realize that 16 minutes a mile is the pace that you must maintain and above that, which really makes Run Disney more accessible than I anticipated. With that in mind, then, when it comes to new people taking on Run Disney, do you see a lot of sort of mistakes that people make straight out of the gate, a lot of sort of constant errors, and what would those be?
Yeah, so I love that Run Disney is so accessible and inclusive that way, because I'm not a fast runner. Like I've never done a marathon. I haven't done a marathon yet. Like I stick to like 10 and half marathons, 10 mile or half marathon. And so like I love that aspect. But there are a couple of things that I do see, and 2 of them have to do with going too fast. So like literally too fast, running too fast. The second one is ramping up mileage too fast. And the last one is not respecting the distance. So many runners will go out and start and be like, oh, 5K, I can totally run a 5K. A 5K is typically a fun run distance. Kids do it. 5-year-olds are allowed to do it. I can totally just go and do this. But if you've never run before, or you weren't active before, 3.1 miles is a big deal.
I agree. And actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think one of the things that is social media has got us into this place where running marathons seems normal now.
Yeah.
It isn't normal. Running 26.2 miles is not normal. It's also, whilst there are massive health benefits, there is also risks to running excessively long distances as well, both short and long-term effects. So I do think that marathons in a way are becoming overrated only because people aren't appreciating that a 5K is still a distance, a 10K is still a distance, a half marathon is still a distance. And so I think the social media noise around marathons and ultras, which my Instagram feed is now just full of, it means that what is still an achievement kind of gets lost in the noise.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, I was only at Run Club just tonight, and one of my friends, she was saying, oh, you know, I really struggled today. We generally do 5K. And she was like, oh, I really struggled today. And I said, yeah, but the Sophie last year couldn't have even imagined doing 5K. You know, you would have thought 5K, what the heck? How I could never do that. Now she's running 10Ks, you know, in an hour. And, you know, she would never have ever thought that she would to do that before. And we were talking about how social media, while it's great at getting people into it, it's really normalized really long distances. You know, like as soon as I say at work, oh yeah, I just did 11 miles, everyone's like, oh my God, 11 miles. And I'm like, oh yeah, 11 miles is actually quite long. But because my feed, as you say, is full of these long distances, these influencers who are just powering through doing 2:30, 2:40 marathons, you just think, wow, you know, like my little half marathon is nothing, but it's actually massive.
It's huge.
It is. And I think one of the things that Run Disney as a community is really good at is reminding people that those distances are impressive still.
Yeah.
I would actually ask you, Ali, then, what do you think makes Run Disney unique rather than just running, you know, park run or something like that? What is it that keeps bringing people back to Run Disney?
I think the inclusivity of it is a huge aspect. You know, of course, you could do a charity bib with, you know, some of the bigger ones, Boston Marathon as an example. And that's great, but it's not catered to a slower runner. They, you know, they start taking down. I've had my clients who have said, oh, I did such and such marathon. I finished, I got my medal, but they had already taken down the finish line, you know, like banner. And like there was no more water at the end. And, you know, volunteers stayed, you know, and my sister ran the Boston Marathon a couple of times on a charity bib. And remember, I said she does like 7-hour marathons. I'm pretty sure she was the last person the last time she did Boston Marathon. Like there's a family that does like a beer stop at at Boston Marathon. And so they took a picture with her because she was the last one coming around. She had her picture in the oh gosh, I don't know, one of the local papers over there. I'm originally from Massachusetts. And then at the end, some guy had stayed, took a video of her running, found her through her bib, and was like, nobody else was around, so I don't think your family was here to see you. So like, I took this video of you, which is so cool of that person. But to hear that all of this stuff is being broken down, like that's so disappointing. Whereas if you're the last runner at a Disney race, they throw confetti on you. Like, you know, like it's exciting. It's you did a hard thing.
Yeah.
And it's mostly, now of course there are a few people that really do strive for a podium finish and they're using it for other reasons, but the majority of runners are finishing with, 12-minute per mile pace, 16-minute per mile pace. I had a client who finished dopey and her marathon was like 18:30.
But if you start in a far enough forward corral, you can get away with it.
She started in B.
Exactly. There's something that people don't realize. And actually, I did a video a few days ago on this. And it's the 16 minutes per mile is a thing, but it's from when the last person crosses the start line. So if you're in a corral that sets off 20 minutes ahead of that, you've got an additional 20 minutes that you haven't factored in.
Yep.
I will say one of the unique things about Run Disney, or maybe not unique, but different, is that a lot of the events are multi-day races. Whether it be Dopey, which is over 4 days, we're doing Springtime Surprise in April and we're doing all 3. What advice do you give to people then? Because a multi-day challenge is very different from running one-off.
Very different. So I recommend runners practice that. So for Dopey, as an example, I don't recommend running 4 days in a row for 6 months, and that's what my training plans are, 6 months long for the Dopey challenge. But incorporate these simulation workouts. So it's, I have my runners walk 45 minutes on Thursday. Then, depending on the week it is, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're running or they're allowed to walk. They could do either. Sunday is the longest run, and the 2 days before that are half of each. So if Sunday's long run is 10 miles, Saturday is 5 miles, and Friday is 2.5 miles. So that mimics the Dopey race weekend, because that's what happens, right? We have the 5K, which many runners walk. And then they have the 10K, which is 6.1, the half marathon, which is 13.1. So 6.1 is just about half of that. And then the half is, of course, a half of the full. So then you practice that multiple weeks throughout the course of your training to give your body a chance to feel like what it's like running or just being on tired legs. Because so many people will think, oh, well, I just did a really big long run, I'm going to rest today. Or I have a big long run tomorrow, I'm going to rest today, which is fine. But if you're going to do that race weekend, you got to get those legs ready.
Agreed. And I actually refer to it as time on feet, because the time you got to spend on your feet. I remember I was still at the start line for the marathon when I'm doing Dopey. And I knew that, and yes, I'm wearing my Dopey top, of course I'm. But I knew that at that point, at that start line, my legs were already tired, and the 3 days before didn't even add up to half of what I had to do, because obviously the marathon being 26.2, it was a long way. But I do think that the community around you really helps as well, because everybody's going through the same thing, and Run Disney do such a good job of putting rarer characters out that you can stop and meet if you wish. They got some good music going around. During the marathon at mile 14, they actually had like a simulated Star Wars battle with fog and lasers, and it was amazing. I didn't see it coming. It was amazing. But one of the things that is recommended, or at least that the Run Disney website talks about, is the run, walk, run strategy. This idea that you're not going to try and run the entire 26.2 miles of the marathon. I think that the run, walk, run is not only more sustainable, people actually end up finishing with a quicker time anyway, because you don't get that drop off that you would get from trying to run the entire time. the questions that I do see sometimes are around nutrition, fueling, keeping going throughout that. How do you approach that for people who are going to be running a marathon in 7 hours, for example? Because that's half a day that you'd have been awake anyway. You got to fuel in that time.
Yeah, so I recommend for every hour beyond the first hour that you're out training, you have 60 to 90 grams of carbs in that hour.
Yeah.
And so I tell my runners, if you don't feel like you're eating constantly, you're not eating enough.
Yeah.
And that's just during the race.
Yeah.
It's 8 to 12 carbs per kilogram body weight per day of pre-race carb loading if you're doing these multi-day events or half marathon, full marathon. And if you don't feel like you are stuffing your face, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, that hits home really hard. I did a 50K in July, and I'm not exaggerating when I said the carb loading the day before was mentally harder than the actual race, because I was just sat there going, I can't do any more. Trying to eat mac and cheese. It was just, yeah, that was harder than the run.
I have a lot of my clients drink their carbs the days before. Like I'm a huge believer in just get some regular Coke. Just have a Coke a couple of times a day. There are a lot of carbs in there. I think like 54 grams of carbs for like a 16 fluid ounce liter.
That is quite a lot, actually.
You
wouldn't want to be drinking that. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be drinking that if you weren't running it, though.
Sure.
So, in terms of Run Disney, then, what would you say is your favorite Run Disney moment that you've had? What's your favorite bit that you can recall from having done it?
So I'm actually wearing my Chills and Thrills from this year.
Bravo.
I'd say that is probably my favorite so far that I've done, mainly because it was the first complete weekend that I was able to do since I started doing this stuff in the Run Disney world. I've done the virtual races, and in January of 2024, I did the half marathon at Marathon Weekend.
Okay, yeah.
But it cut down to a half of a half.
Yeah, because the weather, didn't it?
Because of the weather. Yeah.
I remember reading that.
It was supposed to lightning. It rained, but they cut it in half because actually they even cut it more. I did half. I did 7.1, but they had actually cut it even further. Some people only got 5 miles because of impending lightning. And so it just wasn't as magical as it could have been. I got 2 photo ops throughout the entire race. I didn't get a finish line photo. I got 1 character stop just because they took the photogs off the course for safety. And I totally get it. I 100% support that decision. It just wasn't as magical. And so this past weekend, or not this past weekend, my gosh, it was in September, but this past race that I did was I did all 3 races. I did 5K, then I did the 2 course challenge, so 10K and half marathon. And it was magical. Like, it's so cliche to say, but it was magical. And a cool thing that happened since I've started doing this, people started coming up to me and be like, hey, thank you so much for your training plan. Thank you so much for your podcast. So that like added an extra magical aspect to it. So I think that one's my favorite so far.
That's really cool. I suppose the last question I'll ask you before we do the outro is then, what advice would you give to somebody if they were looking at maybe doing a Run Disney race?
Do it. Just get on, sign up. It is so much fun. The majority of runners, we're slow, back of the pack. The exact reason that you got started, Cameron, is the majority of like my clients or my sphere of people, they see somebody in the park with the medals and they're like, oh my God, I want to do that. You should. It's so much fun. When you do sign up for it, respect the distance in the process. Like, go slower than you think you should, and then go slower again, and give yourself time to train so then you can have a magical weekend and enjoy all the aspects, not feel like you're dying as you're going through it.
Yeah, not feeling like you're dying as you're going through it, especially when you're spending so much money to do it. You should probably enjoy it.
Yes.
Ali, it's been great having you on. Dr. Ali Marty, PT. She's a Run Disney running coach. You can find her at runDisneyDPT. She is well known within the Run Disney community. This is her website as well. That's got links to blog, coaching, some training plans that she's created, and she also has her own podcast as well, Running to the Castle, which is now on quite a few episodes, more than us. You're beating us so far. We'll try and catch up, though. We'll try and catch up. Ali, it's been great having you. Thank you very much. And to everyone watching, thank you for your attendance. And as always, please stand clear of the doors. Bye, everybody.